The leaked clip was just the beginning, but it was enough to shift the narrative. Meghan's brand, once untouchable, was unraveling. Publishers eyed their contracts warily, former allies hesitated to speak out, and skeletons rattled in Montecito's closets. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a turning point. The Sussexes' story escaping oppression, carving their own path, lifting voices relied on authenticity. But if Tyler released more, that story would collapse, exposed as a production, not a truth. Harry, in the UK, was caught in the crossfire. He wasn't just fighting for his name, he was fighting for the life he'd chosen. Leaving the royal family had been a gamble, one he'd made for Meghan, for love, for freedom. But now, watching Tyler be erased, he felt the weight of that choice. Friends said he was restless, haunted by the what-ifs. What if they'd stayed? What if they'd trusted someone else? What if Tyler's vault opened, and the world saw them unfiltered? Meghan, back in California, was in full lockdown mode. Her team worked around the clock, crafting a narrative to salvage her image. But no amount of curated posts could silence the question echoing across the internet. Where's Tyler? The public wasn't just curious, they were angry. Angry at the betrayal of a man who'd given everything. Angry at a fairy tale that now felt scripted. And Tyler. He was still silent, but his silence was a ticking clock. Sources said he was weighing his options. A sit-down interview with someone like Gayle King or Anderson Cooper. A Netflix special of his own. Even a legal affidavit laying out the truth. Whatever he chose, it would be a bombshell. Not just gossip, but a redefinition of the Sussexes' story. Publishers, allies, even royal insiders were bracing for impact. The world was watching. Waiting for the next clip, the next leak, the next chapter. Tyler Perry, the billionaire who'd saved them, now held the keys to their downfall. Harry, the prince who'd traded a palace for peace, was staring down another war. And Meghan, the duchess who'd once controlled the narrative, was publicly unraveling. This wasn't just a bad week, it was the moment everything changed. In the digital age, secrets don't stay buried, they explode. On a quiet morning in July 2025, a 58-second audio clip surfaced online. Uploaded by a burner account with no traceable origin, it spread like wildfire across X, Reddit, and TikTok, reposted and translated into a dozen languages within hours. The voice was unmistakable. Meghan Markle, her tone sharp and calculated, discussing press strategy. "We need selective sympathy," she said, her words slicing through the static. "But the Diana card play it too often, and it'll look staged." In the background, a man's voice presumed to be Harry's grumbled. "Netflix doesn't want too much crying, they want strength." The internet detonated. Hashtags like #selective sympathy and #Sussex tapes trended globally within minutes. Headlines screamed across the UK and US. Secret Sussex tapes leaked, Meghan's PR plot exposed. Royal commentators spun theories while pro-Sussex pages went silent, their carefully curated narratives crumbling. Anti-Sussex voices, meanwhile, called the clip a smoking gun, proof of her orchestrated victimhood. The clip wasn't just damaging, it was a grenade lobbed into the heart of Meghan's empire. Sources close to Tyler Perry's camp whispered that the clip was no accident. It was surgical, deliberate, just long enough to spark outrage but short enough to dodge legal blowback. And it was only the beginning. Insiders claimed Tyler held an archive 17 hours of footage, phone memos, and annotated transcripts. These weren't just casual recordings, they were a chronicle of the Sussexes' post-royal life. Early drafts of their Oprah interview talking points, off-the-record jabs at royal family members, raw discussions about Netflix deals, all preserved in Tyler's vault. If released, they could shatter Meghan's image beyond repair. Meghan's team scrambled into crisis mode. Emergency meetings stretched into the night, with PR strategists, lawyers, and influencers huddled in Montecito, crafting a response. They pushed out vague statements about edited material and uncontextualized moments, but the public wasn't buying it. The clip felt too real, too raw. It wasn't a smear campaign, it was a glimpse behind the curtain, revealing a couple orchestrating their narrative with the precision of a Hollywood production. And Tyler Perry, the man they'd erased, was holding the spotlight. Meghan had always been a master of the narrative. From her days as an actress to her role as a duchess, she knew how to shape a story. But now her carefully tuned orchestra was descending into chaos. Brand deals began to unravel. A major skincare conglomerate, poised to launch a campaign with Meghan, hit pause, citing unforeseen circumstances. A high-end wine collaboration, touted as a passion project, went dark, its social media pages dormant. Leaked internal emails revealed marketing teams reviewing contracts, bracing for a PR nightmare. Meghan's response was to double down. Her social media channels flooded with soft-focus photos. Meghan in a sunlit garden, cradling Lilibet. Meghan penning feminist quotes in a leather-bound journal. Meghan sipping tea with a serene smile. It was a masterclass in deflection, an attempt to drown the internet in positivity. But the comment sections told a different story. "Where's Tyler?" echoed under every post, a question that refused to fade. Even her most loyal followers began to waver, their faith shaken by the clip's stark authenticity. Behind closed doors, Meghan was unraveling. Insiders described her pacing the halls of her Montecito mansion, snapping at staff, her usual poise replaced by a frenetic energy. She knew the stakes. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a reckoning. Tyler Perry wasn't just an ex-friend with a grudge. He was a media titan, a self-made mogul who controlled the narrative of their early days in America. And he had the receipts to prove it. Meghan's team tried to pivot. They nudged brand loyalists to post glowing reviews, coordinated with influencers to share supportive content, and even floated a podcast relaunch to reclaim the narrative. But nothing stuck. The public smelled blood, and the media was relentless. Tabloids dissected the clip frame by frame, while royal watchers speculated about what else Tyler might release. The Sussex's fairy tale independent, authentic, uplifting was teetering on the edge of collapse. Harry saw the storm coming. The moment the clip hit the internet, he knew their world was about to change. Insiders say he booked a private flight to London that same day, not for a royal reunion but for survival. He needed distance, a chance to breathe, to escape the suffocating weight of Montecito. For the first time in months, he returned to the UK alone, staying at a discreet countryside estate owned by a royal ally. No Meghan, no cameras, just Harry, a few trusted confidants, and the ghosts of his past. The UK was no longer home, but it was familiar. The rolling hills of the countryside, the damp air, the quiet hit was a stark contrast to the relentless buzz of California. Harry was spiraling, friends said. Sleepless nights, restless pacing, sharp words to staff. He wasn't just angry, he was torn. Torn between the woman he'd left a kingdom for and the man who'd given him shelter when the world turned its back. Tyler wasn't just a footnote in Harry's story, he was a cornerstone, a symbol of the raw, uncertain days when they'd fled the royal machine. Harry's retreat wasn't about plotting a return to royal duties, though whispers suggested otherwise. Sources close to King Charles's office claimed Harry had reached out through back channels, floating the idea of part-time duties, a way to rebuild his name. Nothing was formal, nothing concrete, just a desperate man grasping for options. Because Harry knew that if Tyler opened his vault, their version of the truth would crumble. The Oprah interview, the Netflix docuseries, the Spotify Delore would be re-examined through a new lens, one that painted them as calculated, not authentic. The palace, meanwhile, watched with a mix of satisfaction and restraint. Royal aides, once accused by Meghan of leaking stories, now smirked in the corners of Clarence House. Prince William's team stayed silent, their restraint a calculated move. They didn't need to speak, the public was doing the work for them. Comment sections, gossip blogs, and X threads dissected every detail. From Meghan's selective sympathy to Harry's grumbling about Netflix, the royal family didn't need to dance on the grave. The world was doing it for them. Tyler Perry remained silent, but his silence was a weapon. It wasn't the silence of defeat, it was the quiet before a storm, the kind that let the other side squirm. His legal team was in overdrive, combing through the guest residency agreement, preparing for the next move. That clause, the one Meghan's team had overlooked, was their ace. It allowed Tyler to disclose context to protect his reputation, and he had everything he needed to do it. Audio logs from planning sessions, notes from late-night calls, even recordings from the moments after the Oprah interview, when the Sussexes buzzed about what landed and what didn't. Tyler wasn't gathering dirt, he was documenting history. As a filmmaker, he knew the value of a good story, and the Sussexes' escape was a Hollywood saga in the making. But now, those recordings were more than a chronicle. They were leverage. Producers circled like sharks, sensing a tello that could redefine the narrative. One insider joked it could out-Oprah, a reference to the Sussexes' bombshell 2021 interview. Networks offered exclusive deals, and streaming platforms cleared studio slots, ready for Tyler to step into the spotlight. He hadn't spoken yet, but his team's fingerprints were all over the leaked clip. The timing was too perfect, the release too precise. It was a message. You erase me, I remind you I exist. Tyler wasn't the type to burn bridges. He built stages and sold out shows, and if he chose to speak, it wouldn't be a reckless rant. It would be a calculated performance, backed by receipts, delivered with the precision of a man who'd built an empire by betting on himself. What would he reveal? The possibilities were endless. Meghan's late-night anxiety spirals, pacing Tyler's garden as she ranted about royal aides. Harry's whispered confessions of betrayal, his voice breaking as he spoke of his father and brother. Early drafts of their Netflix docuseries, where arguments flared over what to keep and what to cut. Tyler had been there for all of it, not as a bystander, but as a confidant, a strategist, a protector. And now, he was a threat. In the spring of 2025, a storm hit Tyler Perry's empire. A $160 million civil lawsuit, filed by actor Derek Dixon, landed like a grenade in the heart of Hollywood. The accusations were explosive: a toxic workplace, intimidation, career sabotage. Overnight, Tyler went from being the industry's golden child to its embattled titan. Court filings piled up, each one more damning than the last. Emails, production notes, and insider reports painted a picture of a man whose generosity might have masked a darker side. The headlines were merciless. Tyler Perry sued for millions, screamed one tabloid. Hollywood's fairy godfather faces career-killing claims, declared another. Social media erupted, with hashtags like #TylerTrouble trending across platforms. For a man who had spent decades building a reputation as a creative genius and a philanthropist, the allegations were a gut punch. But for Harry and Meghan, they were something else entirely, a liability. Meghan's response was swift and surgical. Within hours of the lawsuit breaking, Tyler's presence began to vanish from her digital world. Photos of him at Lilibet's christening disappeared from her Instagram. Posts that once gushed about Uncle Tyler were archived or deleted. Mentions of him as godfather in interviews and bios were quietly scrubbed. Even Lilibet's Wikipedia page underwent a subtle edit, with "is swapped for" was in reference to Tyler's role. It was as if he had never existed. The internet, as always, noticed. Screenshots flooded Reddit, X, and TikTok. "Where's Uncle Tyler?" became a rallying cry for royal watchers and gossip enthusiasts. Timestamps were compared, receipts were shared, and comment sections buzzed with speculation. To the public, it looked like a betrayal. Tyler, the man who had opened his home when the royal family turned its back, was now being erased like a bad memory. But Meghan's team had made a critical mistake. They underestimated Tyler Perry. He wasn't just a friend or a host, he was a billionaire, with a legal team sharper than a blade. Tucked away in the guest residency agreement the Sussexes had signed during their stay was a clause. One line that Meghan's advisors should have read twice. It stated that in the event of a public disavowal by either party, the other could disclose necessary context to protect their reputation. In other words, if Meghan tried to erase Tyler from her narrative, he was legally free to tell his side of the story, and he had the receipts to back it up. Tyler Perry didn't become a billionaire by being careless. Every moment of his time with the Sussexes was documented not out of malice, but out of habit. A man who had clawed his way to the top knew the value of evidence. Photos, texts, emails, even audio logs from late-night planning sessions were meticulously archived. These weren't just memories, they were a chronicle of a pivotal moment in Hollywood history, and now, they were a weapon. Sources close to Tyler's legal team revealed he was furious not just at the lawsuit, but at Meghan's cold erasure. The man who had been a godfather to a daughter, who had offered his home and his heart, was being treated like a PR risk. It wasn't just betrayal, it was personal. Tyler wasn't the type to lash out impulsively, but he was weighing his options. Producers were already circling, sensing a story that could out-Oprah Oprah. Networks dangled exclusive deals, and streaming platforms offered blank checks for a tell-all. What did Tyler have? Everything. He had been there for the raw, unfiltered moments. Meghan pacing the garden, venting about royal aides. Harry whispering in the hallways about family betrayals. Late-night calls where deals were struck and Netflix scripts were drafted. Tyler hadn't just witnessed their plans, he had helped shape them. And now, he was being cast aside, like an old script. The public, meanwhile, was eating it up. Comment sections on Meghan's curated posts full of soft-focus garden shots and wellness quotes were flooded with one question: where's Tyler? Brand partners began to waver. A major skincare label paused an upcoming campaign. A high-end wine collaboration went silent. Marketing teams scrambled to review contracts, bracing for the possibility of a PR disaster. Tyler, for his part, remained silent. But his silence was deafening, the kind that signaled a storm was coming. Meghan's team knew it. Behind closed doors they were in crisis mode, holding emergency meetings and consulting lawyers. They flooded social media with positive content, hoping to drown out the noise. But the internet wasn't buying it. The fairy tale was unraveling, and Tyler Perry held the thread. In the sprawling, sun-drenched hills of Beverly Hills, where palm trees cast long shadows over manicured lawns, a mansion stood like a fortress. It wasn't just a home, it was a refuge, a place where secrets could be whispered without fear of prying ears. This was Tyler Perry's estate, a monument to his empire, built from years of grit, talent, and unrelenting ambition. In early 2020, this sanctuary became the unlikely haven for two of the world's most scrutinized figures, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, along with their infant son, Archie. The world had watched as Harry and Meghan tore up the royal script. Their departure from the United Kingdom, dubbed Megxit by a relentless press, was a seismic event. They had fled Buckingham Palace's gilded cage, escaping a life of rigid protocol, whispered betrayals, and tabloid vultures. But freedom came at a cost. The couple faced a storm of headlines, security concerns, and the weight of a family that seemed to turn its back on them. They needed more than a new address, they needed a shield. And Tyler Perry, a man who had built his own empire from nothing, became that shield. Tyler wasn't royalty, but he was Hollywood royalty. A billionaire filmmaker, actor, and producer, he had a private jet, a security team that could rival any government's, and a reputation for loyalty that made him a rare ally in a cutthroat industry. When the Sussexes' world imploded, it wasn't a king or a prince who came to their rescue. It was Tyler, the man with a heart as big as his bank account, who opened his doors without hesitation. His Beverly Hills estate wasn't just a house, it was a fortress of privacy, tucked behind high walls and guarded gates. It offered the kind of seclusion the couple craved. For months, it became their sanctuary, a place where flashbulbs couldn't reach, where royal aides couldn't meddle, and where the relentless hum of tabloid speculation faded into silence. Inside those walls, Harry, Meghan, and Archie began to rebuild. They weren't just hiding, they were rebranding, crafting a new identity as independent voices in a world that refused to let them go. Tyler didn't just offer a roof over their heads, he gave them his name, his protection, and his unwavering support. Meghan, ever grateful, bestowed upon him a title more sacred than any royal honor, godfather to their daughter Lilibet. In a world where trust was scarce, this was a bond forged in gratitude, a promise of loyalty that felt eternal. Tyler, the man who had once been a stranger, became family.